Welcome, everybody. Episode 7, AOS Podcast. We're back at it. It's Wednesday. I know some of y'all looking like, man, what these dudes doing on here, man? This ain't Friday, but we are back. We got a new show time, new show day. The people have spoken, and they said, hey, we want to get y'all sooner than Friday. So here we are on a Wednesday, AOS Podcast, and this is episode 7. It's titled Support Systems, Coaches and Mentors for Education Leaders. And so you're going to hear a dynamic conversation from the boys and I. We're going to talk about our journey through leadership and the folks that have been instrumental in our life and how we've been able to navigate through that time. And so we're excited about that. But as always, if you are a first-time listener, I want to say thank you. And subscribe to our YouTube page, which is the AOS Podcast. Like us on Facebook with the AOS Podcast and follow us on Twitter, AOS Podcast. And you're going to really enjoy the content. If you haven't listened to previous episodes, definitely go back and check those out. But this is episode 7 on a Wednesday. I got Ball and Doc with me. And so before we get going, audience, if you in there, drop a comment, drop a like. 1 to 10, how you feeling? It's hump day. I got fall break in 2 days, so I'm feeling like 20. Made it to 20. So check-ins real quick. Doc, man, what's been going on this week, brother?
Hey, man, it's been a good week so far. Finished up my school improvement plan. I'm getting ready to present that to the board next Wednesday. I'm super excited about that. We kicked off our book study of with the whole staff. Why are all the black kids sitting together in the cafeteria? So the staff was real receptive on that. Excited about to see what that's going to work. And then, just grinding, doing my thing. I see Ball, he must be in nap town because his internet not working.
Hey, listen, bro, I'm at the school, man, so I'm a little worried, man. I'm gonna be honest. I'm a little worried about this right now. But hey, man, listen, that's good, brother. So what's that shirt about, man? Hold on, what's that?
Okay. So this is my building leadership team. This is our shirt. This was designed by my 1A, Miss Dakis, who is no longer with me. She's now an instructional coach in the district, but she was a math teacher with me last year. She designed it. And then on the back, it says layering on support for our colleagues. So it's our building leadership team that do a lot of the instructional decision-making around here, which is comprised of 6 teachers and my instructional coach and myself. So
got you, man. Well, I got on a hoodie and a vest, so that just tell you what's going on up here in Naptown at your work.
It's cold up here?
Man, it was 50 degrees this morning. Now it's 80. So I went outside for dismissal, sweating bullets. Exactly, Ball. That's the same face I made when I walked outside, man. Like, wow. What's going on? Hey, man, we're just doing check-ins, boss. Man, what's going on in Cali, man? How's things going this week?
Oh, things are good, man. The smoke has cleared a little bit in my area. I mean, y'all know that California's been burning for what seems like forever. But in our area, it's the smoke is cleared. This week in school, we're doing parent-teacher student conferences. So that's the hot thing on my plate right now. But everything's going well. We're having really good discussions with families about how we can support students. So, so I'm good and in that way.
That's the old man. And y'all about to have that parade too on Friday in California. All of Cali about to be up when the Lakers win.
Exactly. It's live. It's gonna be live. I'm a LeBron James fan, so I can.
That's what I said.
Give or take of the Lakers.
I'm sorry to hear that.
What you got, Doc? What you got, Doc?
Let's move on. I do got a good question though, because you did talk about parent, teacher, student conferences. Do y'all do student-led conferences?
We've been coaching our students this year. It's been really it's been difficult because we're talking a lot with 6th grade families so far, and we haven't been able to coach them up on how to do that. But we've been as much as possible focusing on the students and getting their feedback to see how things have been going for them and what they think we can do to help support them.
Dave, y'all do student-led conferences at your building?
Nah, man, we ain't there yet.
Oh, okay.
We about a year or 2 away from that.
Okay.
Listen, I'm still coaching teachers on how to do conferences, okay? Like, we got to get that.
I figured you could just bypass that and coach the students.
Man, I thought about that, man. But I was like, nah, teacher jump in, say something wrong. Man. So look, that goes to our topic though, right? Because it was a mentor, man, that told me, hey, baby steps. So first you train yourself, how you lead a conference, you model it for your staff, you staff do it, they model it for the students. And then like you said, the third layer, right? is that student piece. And so, like I said, we still a year or two out, man. I got some folks that are pretty decent and solid at it, but we're not quite there yet. So, fellas, look, we're gonna jump in, man, because the title of the show is Support Systems and Coaches and Mentors for Education Leaders. So let's start very simple, man. We didn't get here on our own. None of us just showed up in education and became a leader. So we had people that came and supported us throughout this journey, man. So each of us, let's jump in and share our story. So, man, Doc, this was your idea.
This was my idea.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So kick us off, man. Like, tell us the story, man, about who helped you get to this point.
Yeah, you know, I talked about it a little bit last show, but really I was influenced by my principal in middle school and high school. I ended up having the same principal when I transitioned from 8th grade to 9th grade. She moved up to the high school with us and was just an example of how it is to lead, to be out front, to be supportive of your students, to be supportive of your staff. And she was just really a mother figure for me, Dr. Crates, back in wonderful Findlay, Ohio. And she just set the example. So it made me really think about being an educator. And then there were a couple summer programs that we had where high schoolers were working with high school teachers, and we were running a summer educational camp for elementary school kids. And so I did that for a summer, and I really, really enjoyed that time. I was with one of our physics teachers, and math and physics are not my thing, but he made it fun and he made it enjoyable. And so that really inspired me. I was like, you know, this is something that I really can do and want to do. And then we had also like a careers in teaching course at the high school. And so my senior year, I did that and got to work with an elementary school teacher. And again, you know, just going through that experience and seeing how I could have the influence that those teachers had on me. So that was really the springboard for me to decide that I wanted to get an education. And I mean, I can go into all my sports coaches as well, because they really fueled me and motivated me to just be that example that you know, our young people need.
Man, that's dope, man. Like I said, so mine is somewhat along those lines. But man, honestly, when I think about who got me here, right? And so I'm gonna start from the moment, like day one in leadership, right? Where I listen, I don't know if it was youthful inexperience or this fear of failure, man, but I was trying to imitate my mentor, my boss, man. And she said something to me. She was like, leadership looks different for different people, right? Effective leadership for me is different than effective leadership for you. So you got to find a leader that you want to be. I spent a year, that first year, man, I failed miserably because I was trying to be like her, right? And man, she was a pit bull, man, but she was just in your face, and that's just not me, right? At the time, it wasn't me, and I was trying to imitate that, man, and failed miserably. But it wasn't until she pulled me aside, man, and dropped that gem on me, man, and coached me. And she said, "We got to find out who you are. Who's David McGuire as a leader? What type of teacher was David McGuire? How did David McGuire lead his students?" And that's the kind of approach you got to be. You got to be authentic to who you are, man. And so Kelly Marshall, man, is somebody that I still look up to and owe her, because I wouldn't have got to this point where I'm at Summit had I not had that conversation with her and just sitting me down and talking to me about, let's find out who you are, and not you trying to be like me, but you trying to be the leader that you are, man. And so that's always my advice. And we'll get into that later on, and advice because we are growing and we're going to be leaders and mentors to other ed leaders. But that was some advice, man. And it was a rough year. But as I fast forward now, 5 years later, man, and the principal I am now was because of that and her constant guidance. And she always asked me, are you being true to you? Right. They say, man, heavy is the head that wears the crown. Right. Leadership is hard, man. The last thing we need to do as leaders is try to be something that we're not. We just have to be true to who we are. So I thank Kelly Marshall for that, for sure.
So, Dave, that was year one as a principal?
Yeah, man.
Well, in the classroom. Okay.
Year one as a principal. I saw the way she led our district. I'm like, I'm going to be like that. I'm going to just go, and I was just, people like, man, what's this dude about, man? Like, this ain't even you, right? And she saw that, and she saw me. I wasn't getting through the staff. I wasn't getting through the students. I wasn't getting through the parents. And she was like, man, it doesn't even seem natural. And it was hard to keep up with as I reflect, because, again, it wasn't true to who I was. But now, man, I'm the leader I am. And I have a little bit of that now, but I had to grow into that. That wasn't me right out the gate. So,
wow. I'm trying to figure, like, do I go back to like how I got here in education or to my leadership? So I'm gonna kind of break it up into two parts. Two people played a role into me actually get into education. First was my high school principal. And the words didn't mean nothing to me at the time, but as I got into education, they resonated more and more with me. When I got in trouble one time, I was getting ready to get suspended for a fight or whatever. She sat me down and said, Vashawn, you're going to be a great educator one day, because the worst students turn out to be the best educators, just like the worst criminals could be the best lawyers. And at the time, I'm like, man, I'm not going to be no educator. You got me. So when I got into education, somehow those words kept playing in my head. And then as I got into my undergrad years, Dr. Bonnie J. Perry, who was one of my mentors, was the first one when I was getting ready to leave education. I was a part of a program between the University of Nebraska Omaha and Omaha Public Schools called the Minority Intern Program, where during our undergrad, we got to go into classrooms and get experience, things like that. And I was working at North High, and I hated it. I was like, man, I'm about to straight up smack one of these kids. Like, they got me all the way twisted. So I was getting ready to lead a program, and she was like, you know what? How about you go try middle school? Just go try middle school before you change things. And from the day I stepped into a middle school, Monroe Middle School in Omaha, Nebraska, I knew that's where I wanted to be. And it's just, in education, they tell you, if you're a middle school person, you know it from day one. So that's how I got into education. But fast forward to how I got here as a leader, it wouldn't have happened without Miss Guest, another one of my mentors, who, when I was my last year in the classroom, she was my assistant principal. And I thought this lady hated me. Oh my God, I thought she hated me. Like, she never spoke to me unless it was, an evaluation or an observation. This was real mean. And then she got a principal's job after that year. And she came to me and was like, I want you to be my instructional coach in my new building. And I was like, me? Like, I didn't think you liked me. And then from there, this amazing brother-sister relationship, mentor-mentee relationship that we have developed over the last 8 years during this journey. And then I did 1 year as her instructional coach, and then she promoted me to her assistant principal the next year. That's what got me into administration. So without those people, Dr. Perry and Ms. Guest, I wouldn't be sitting in this chair today.
Man, listen, and it's up there, man. The black women, it's crazy, man. Because like I said, it was a black woman for me, right? That got me to this point, and that goes to because growing up, man, I think about K through 12, man, I had many black male teachers, right? And then through leadership, all my professors, my professors in my leadership program were black women. Now that I think about it, 6 of the 7 in my principal program were black women. Which is crazy. Now I still think about that.
Which is crazy, because the other day when one of the pieces I'm writing for my blog is about the people that have mentored me throughout the years, and as I go throughout that mentor tree, there's very few black men on that tree. I think back, and my best friend, my BFF, is in the comments. She talked about Mr. Dye, who was our high school math teacher, who was probably one of the only black male teachers I had in my K-12 journey. But I remember early on in college, as well as in my early teaching career, like, I had to fight against black men that were in administration who were basically trying to shut me out. I kind of had that good old boy system, things like that. So as I kind of reflected back over that in the last month or so, as I wrote this piece, I'm like, man, it's crazy how there aren't a lot of black men that have tried to help me get to that next level.
Which is almost sad. So look, there's some comments in here, and I think we'd be remiss if we didn't do it right for the viewers, man. So Ball, man, you touched on something, man, that got the folks jumping in here. So a lot of folks are asking about conferences and things like that. So people saying, I got conferences coming up, and Auntie Toya asked about who's setting the agenda. And so Ball, y'all got more experience. My conferences are real basic. I ain't gonna lie to you, man. They're real basic. I got nothing fancy. So let's take a couple of months before we go back into the topics, man, and make sure we give the people what they want. So tell me what y'all parent-teacher conferences are like, and what are y'all planning for to make sure that during this time, with it being virtual, that they're still impactful for parents and scholars.
Yeah, I think we've got a good counseling team in my school, and they are focused on keeping it student-centered. Like I said before, in the past, it's always been student-led, and there's been a lot of coaching with their core teachers and with our counseling team to prepare students so that they're ready to get in there and talk. And, we've got an agenda set up with, what's going well for you in a remote setting. What are some areas that you feel like you need support in? What are you noticing? So we get the feedback from the student first, then it's student and then parent. and then the teachers, what everyone is seeing, and then basically with all the feedback, all those things, we put together an action plan at the very end, because at our school, we're focused on students that aren't successful, that aren't successful yet. Maybe they have a D or an F even, and so we're really trying to step in during the end of the first quarter and get those get a plan in place to help them be successful as possible. And it's not just on the student, it's on the teachers, it's on the entire team. I mean, we approach every meeting, every conference as it's a team effort. So we're here for team Joey or whoever the student is to figure out what's working. And in a remote setting, again, we're fully remote right now. We've got a lot of kids that are struggling to stay engaged. There's distractions. They're sitting on the couch, and their siblings are watching TV, and they're right in front of that. And it's just all those factors we have to take into consideration, and just take steps to say, hey, you know what? These are the things that we're seeing. These are the ways that we think we can help. Let's try these things. If it's not working out, let's come back to the table and let's have more discussions about it.
Yeah. Hey, Doc, man, as you talk, because you said something about the idea of the student-led conferences, and so to Auntie Toya's point, she said, "What about the students that are doing well, and how do you push them further?" I heard folks use student-led conferences more so for those high students, right, to get them to think deeply and reflect on their ability and how they're doing, a bit of articulate that. So, man, touch on like how you have implemented what I'm assuming is student-led conferences and how that's been successful for you all.
So I came from a building where we had implemented student-led conferences, and then we dabbled in it a little bit as my first year last year. But basically, the whole purpose behind student-led conferences is for kids to talk about a couple of things. One, something that they're proud of, that they've accomplished throughout that time frame, whether it be the first quarter, the first half of the school year, for second semester conferences. So what is something that you're proud on? And then what is in the area that you've grown in? So taking, a pre-write and then, comparing it to a final write, or a pre-test, comparing it to a post-test, and then having them be able to articulate their growth through a unit or through a set of lessons as they learn through that process. And then also an area that they need to improve upon. So, even if, you have that kid that's an A student, if they're getting a B in one class, or if they're getting a C or a D, how can they pull that up? And what can they do to kind of help themselves self-advocate? And we build a lot of that plan around SMART goals, so having kids create SMART goals, and then they walk their parents through the SMART goal process. And then teachers are there as facilitators, kind of just to ask questions. We have team systems here, so there's 4 core teachers on the team with a group of kids. So they're there just to kind of answer questions specific about instruction or about a topic or things like that. So what that's going to look like for us this first quarter, because our conferences are coming up the first week of November, might be a little bit different, because like Boss said, we have kids that are struggling tremendously with this virtual learning thing. And we are actually in the midst of talking about bringing our kids back to the building in a hybrid mode here probably in the next 3 to 4 weeks. So it'll be right around conference time we make that move. So what I'm talking to my teachers about as we move into conference season, what I need you to be talking about in those conferences is the social emotional part of the students. What are they struggling with, social emotionally? How can we better build support systems around that? And I've been on this whole thing on Facebook and some of the stuff I've been reading. We got to get to Bloom's to Maslow before we get to Bloom. So how do we make sure all those things are in place so that kids feel safe, whether it's at home virtually or in the building, dealing with other students before we actually get to the instructional piece of that? We're going to talk about instruction and the grade thing, but I think the social emotional part of that is going to be a big focus around our conferences this first go around.
Got you, man. Listen, see, this is why I like talking to y'all, man. Because like I said, my conferences are real basic. But I took some notes, man, on things I need to do. And when I say basic, it's because, again, when we took the school over 4 years ago, like, it was chronically failing. And so we had to start from scratch with certain systems. And so some of that had to be controlled. And so my teacher tell you, if they were here 2 years ago, they had a script. This is what you're going to say. And this is what you're going to say when you're going to say, and you just input the data, right? So you start off with the praise. So we use what's the success? So it was successful when, next time you'll try. It's how we get feedback here. And so I would always tell them, you start with the success of the kids, you put in the grow areas, right? And then you end it again with success, right? but you always hit about the data and you never make it personal. That's why you always have data to back it up. And you have artifacts and things like that, but you limit it to 15, 20 minutes of you talking, and then you allow the parent to ask question or the kid to ask question and things like that. But you shouldn't be talking the whole meeting. And so that's kind of how we did it, but the idea of the student-led conferences and some of the stuff you guys talked about is definitely powerful. So folks, I hope you like that. Go ahead.
I'm going to just jump in because I think it goes to our topic tonight. You know, really, it's coaching and it's mentoring these young people to be able to, just like Doc says, self-advocate, to get you in a position where you're comfortable sitting down, talking to adults for whatever the case is. Just get them ready. Just get them ready.
That's it, man. So,
and it's real quick. I wanted to jump in because this was a phrase that I heard the other day that I think I'm gonna try to incorporate in this year. Like I said, we talked about the way we talked about, you know, students' growth and all that, but what we're gonna call glows and grows. Like, what are the areas that kids are glowing in, and then what are the areas they can grow in? So that's a terminology I think we're going to incorporate this year in our conferences as well.
Yeah, man. Shout out to Relay National Principal Fellowship, who taught me glows and grows when I went to the Relay Fellowship. Uncommon, shout out to y'all for teaching me that, because that's something we do, glows and grows. We do a thing called 3, 2, 1. So 3 questions, 2 suggest, or three comments, 2 questions, 1 suggestion. That's how we do it. Some people change the order, but that's how we do it there. So it's a 3, 2, 1. So I learned all that, man, in that fellowship. Again, somebody having a mentor. So fellas, let's jump back in to our next point. So Bob, this was all you. I'm gonna let you kick these out, man, because these are ideas. So you talked about the idea between a coach versus a mentor. So set the stage for us when you say coach versus a mentor and what you mean, and then Doc and I kind of jump in with our thoughts too.
Yeah, so I was just reflecting over the last week about just some of the challenges that we face as leaders. And I can't remember the exact podcast or PD that I was listening to, but there was a conversation about what is the difference. It was preparing for, I was listening to a show, and it was talking about preparing you for the next job. So as principal, preparing you for the superintendent role. And one of the things that they were talking about is being ready, and part of getting ready is having a coach and having a mentor. And they didn't really go into the details. You know, they talked about, you know, a specific time frame. They talked about one person that is going to stick with you, you know, throughout your career and those types of things. So I wanted to dive in and really ask you all, do you feel that there is a difference between the idea of a coach and a mentor? You know, I think, you know, with an athletic background, you know, I think about that coach, that person that's riding you, that's on you all the time. Do we see that type of thing in education as a principal? Do we have a coach, whether it's a direct supervisor that is on you, trying to help you meet your goals? And then, you know, I was thinking about that whole mentor idea. Is that someone that's like coming alongside you and you're bouncing your ideas off of them? So I wanted to throw that out to you two to see what your thoughts are, and then, you know, I can come back and kind of give my idea.
Go ahead, Doc. You want to take a stab at it first?
Yeah. So basically, I look at them differently, and I'm actually adding a third category at the end. I do see coaches and mentors differently. And I'm gonna give you a real life example. Last year's my first year. I went out and I got a coach through Better Lessons. I was able to pay for it through my PD funds. Shout out to Kirsten Taylor. She was amazing. Really helped me get my first year off. Give me a great foundation. And we met every other week. It was very formal. We had an agenda when we met. She talked to me through certain things. She helped me develop, you know, my vision for the school, talked about the stakeholders that need to be a part of that. It was very, very scripted and very, you know, data-driven, performance-driven, things like that. But she was amazing. I mean, like I said, hands down, like if you are first year or if you're a principal that's struggling or spinning your wheels, I would highly recommend you get with Better Lessons and get you an administrator's coach and help them kind of get you over that hump. But then I also look at, last episode, we had one of my mentors on, Beth Huff, who basically was an informal relationship who I feel like I could text at any time. You know, we had kind of that personal and that professional side that we talked about things as well. And it wasn't very scripted. It was kind of organic. It developed on its own, based on kind of what I needed and how she felt she could kind of come in and undergird and support me in that process. So I definitely see those two roles as different. I see that coach is kind of really being, you know, performance driven and trying to get to that goal, whereas that mentor is really talking about growth and how do we continue to, even once you hit that goal, what's the next thing? How do you keep moving forward? But then I want to add in a third piece that I think we also need besides coaches and mentors is we need a sponsor. And a sponsor is that person who is going to be in those rooms you can't get into, that's going to bring your name up, that's going to allow you to get to that next level, that's going to keep your name in the discussion and things like that. So like I said, while I think coaches and mentors are different, I also think we need sponsors so that they can get up when they're in those rooms that we can't get into. They're bringing our name up to help us get into those rooms and get our seat at those tables.
Yeah, man. When I was and I like that sponsor piece, because that's true. We need those folks that's going to pull the chair out for us or get the seat at the table and bring us alongside. When I think about coach and mentor, man, I don't know if you could be both. And let me tell you why I said that. So my boss that I talked about was a coach for me. She rolled me. She gave me feedback. She gave me glows and grows, right? It wasn't until she transitioned out that she became a mentor, that she became a sounding board. I wonder if it's just a tricky situation if your coach is also your mentor, because that mentor is the one that's supposed to catch you when you fall and kind of smooth you up. But that coach, man, does both. That coach is on you. That coach is giving you that critical feedback. And so I guess for me, I would prefer my mentor to be the person that's, you know, listening to me and give me the real advice, but more on a gentle side. But I want my coach, man, to give it to me raw. Just give it to me raw, man, and tell me. And when I'm wrong, and you got to correct me and show me. And when I'm right, you praise me. So I think there's an evolution. I think most people start off as your coach, and when they transition, that role changes, they become a mentor. But I don't think you can be both for somebody. I don't think I can be a mentor to my coach. And so I tell my teacher leaders here, and we'll talk about our coaching tree. I'm your coach right now, right? The APs, that's your mentor. Let them suck you up. I'm here. You said you want to be a leader. My job is to get you there. And so I'm going to give it to you that way. So that's my thoughts on the difference between a coach and a mentor.
Yeah, I like all of those. You know, I really feel like a coach is like a in the moment thing. It could be a supervisor for sure. I think about out here in California, you got to clear your credentials. So you go through your program, and you know you take your classes or take a test, whatever, to get that preliminary admin certification. But then you have to clear your credential, so you got to go through some type of program where you have a coach. And you know, basically my my third year as an assistant principal, I had a coach, and, you know, basically kind of set the stage for, hey, these are the things that you need to be accomplishing. These are the goals that we're going to set. And I need to see deliverables on meeting each one of these goals in this amount of time. And so when you think of a coach, you think of it that way, you know. And just like you said, David, I think, you know, it's tough to be both to a person. You know, that mentor, you know, it's probably someone that's had that experience. It's someone that has gone through, traveled your path. Maybe not. Maybe it's in a completely different industry. And I'm gonna bring it back to the frat, because, you know, that's one of the things. I mean, because honestly, that's what it is. I mean, that's what it is. Being a member of whatever fraternity you're in, like it's a brotherhood. And, you know, we've got so many professionals that have walked these steps that we are in the midst of right now. 2 weeks ago, we had a social distancing event at one of the bros' houses, not too far from me. And, you know, we just hung out and we're talking, we're sharing these, you know, sharing old stories of coming through and crossing, and then professional life, what it's like. And those moments are invaluable to get that knowledge and soak it up. And you can throw ideas out there. You know, did you try this? You know, would this work, you know, in this type of setting or not? And so I think that mentorship has been something that has been so important to me just in my frat experience, and it's paying off in my leadership experience as well. Man,
listen, to that piece about the frat, I remember from September of 2008 to March of 2009, them mofos at Delta Z were straight up coaches, man. It wasn't until after March where they became mentors, right? And some of y'all who's Greek know what I'm talking about when I gave but it started off as coaches, right? But then when you get to that other side, they become your mentor until you talk about ball, because then the ones that's gonna write that recommendation letter, because they wouldn't write no type of recommendation letters during September through March.
But when you also think about it, though, like I said, that we kind of bring it into that context. When you're going through that process, you want that coach because they are data driven. I mean, it's results driven. They're trying to make. Are you capable enough to wear these letters? Like, I need to make sure that's what they're. So then once you do cross those burning sands and you put these letters on, now let me mentor and show you how to really be a Sigma man. Let me actually give you all the components of piece you do. So I think that kind of goes back to that piece of the coaching thing is like, I'm trying to get you to a point. Where that mentor thing is now, I'm not just trying to get you to a point. I'm trying to get you to evolve into something totally different.
Yep. And we ain't talking about hazing. We're talking about when you sit around a table and read books about the history of your chapter and learn your ancestors. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about that other stuff.
Let's just clear that up for all those.
I don't know about y'all, but Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated is a non-hazing fraternity.
Man, listen. I'm going to just say this. Ain't no paper, no pen, but we ain't out here hazing. I just put that out there. Anyway, I do want to say this. This is the AOS Podcast, episode 7. We're talking about support systems. And my boy Doc, man, we have to give a shout out because we do got a sponsor. Shout out to the 8 Black Hands who sponsored our show. So we want to throw that out there because they are our sponsors, because they opened the door for us on this platform for us to do this show, and has allowed us to build our own personal platforms and get our name out there and a recognition. So shout out to them. Shout out to Unc, who's more of a coach, and Charles and Sharif and Chris, who are more of the mentors. So let me just say that. That's my thoughts on the 8 Black Hands. We had 3 mentors and 1 coach. That's for me. What y'all think, man? How would y'all rate the hands on mentor versus coach?
I ain't got nothing to say, but amen.
You didn't lie.
Wow.
No hard told. Woo, that water went down the wrong pipe. So, woo. Hey, man, we love you, dog. We love you. So here we go.
We got some merch in the mail for you.
Yeah, we do. Next question, man. This is the big one. So now that we're here, who or what are we tapping into for support? So, Doc, we had a show last week. You talked about a person you tap into. For the folks that missed it, give them a little preview of what you talked about, who you tapping into.
So one of my main mentors, and like I said, it happened organically, like just off, by happenstance, is Beth Huff, who is a principal in Fulton, Missouri, Fulton Middle School. She's an author of the book Lead Like a Pirate. She runs the Lead Lat Chat. Shout out to her, because actually I'm gonna be facilitating the Lead Lat Chat this Saturday at 9:30 Central Standard Time. So she's giving me an opportunity to do that. But I basically picked up her book just on happenstance at Barnes & Noble's after I got my job. And then I got lucky and got blessed to be a part of the Missouri Leadership Academy, the 35th cohort last year. And she happened to be a part of the same cohort. And we connected. And and it was just like from day one, we just had this energy. I mean, like I said, she's been doing it for 7 years. I kind of, went to her site. She did a presentation and looked at all the stuff that she was doing. And I'm like, that's what I want for my school. Like that community engagement, that's, students excited to be in the building. So she's been one of my main mentors that I've leaned on over the last year, for sure. And then this year, like I said, it's kind of, you talk about that boss, one of my boss, Dr. King, who's the assistant super for curriculum instruction. I think she kind of goes back and forth. There's days where she's that coach, where she's coming in like, hey, I need you to do X, Y, and Z. Here's where you're falling short. But then there's some days where she steps in and she's a mentor. And she said, okay, let me be your sounding board. Talk about what you want to do and let me kind of help you walk through there. And I think she's able to play both of those roles so well for me, as opposed to last year. And I tell people just the other day, is like, I felt like last year I was kind of like out there on my own. It was kind of like when a kid is first learning how to walk, you just kind of let your kid, they grab on the tables and they get their steps. And, as a parent, you kind of just let them do their thing. But then once they get their feet under them, then you grab them by the hand and say, okay, now I can guide you where you need to go. And I feel like that's what she did with me last year. Like, I'm just going to throw you in, let you figure it out. And now that you kind of got a good foundation, now let me help you guide and tweak and move things where you need them to go and stuff like that. So those have definitely been 2 of the people that I've leaned on here lately. And we just talked about him, not from a coaching standpoint, but really from a mentor standpoint, is Unc. Like he's called and checked up on me over the last few weeks. I've been dealing with some stuff, really giving me some advice how to handle things, some stuff like, hey, you young in this game, so let me kind of help guide you in some things that you're gonna do. So he's been very, very, very instrumental these last few weeks as I've dealt with some stuff personally and professionally, that he's kind of helped me walk through. So shout out to Unc for kind of stepping in and kind of seeing. Like, I didn't ask him; he's just seen based on some stuff that I had mentioned on the show. You know, he reached out to me, and then, like I said, he's been checking on me ever since. So,
man, that's love. Shout out to Unc for that. So, Bob, man, who or what are you tapping into, man, as you are developing as a leader, man? What type of resources or who are the people that you tapping into?
Yeah, so when I made the transition to really pursue admin, I really got connected through Twitter, and I think it's amazing all the educational leaders that you find on Twitter. And through that, you know, I started listening to educational podcasts, and you know, fortunately, you know, a year ago I found A Black Hands, and I mean, it's been invaluable to just like listen. You know, I feel like I'm like sitting at the feet of all these wise educators, man. I mean, I just think about, you know, they've got these great experiences and they're sharing them, and they're trying to make life better for Black kids and Black families. I mean, that's amazing. And so, you know, this past year, you know, to really tapping into the hands has been huge in my development as a leader, as a dad, all those things. But really, when I jumped on Twitter, I found a guy, Danny Bauer. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him or you heard of him. Better Leaders, Better Schools podcast. And you know, just randomly, I just decided to like reach out to him. I sent him a direct message on Twitter, and we've been connected since 2015. And I've been following, you know, his journey. We've connected so many different ways, but I'm part of his mastermind. And if you're not familiar with what a mastermind is, basically it's a group of like-minded folks in the same type of industry. He's leading education masterminds. And so I've been part of his mastermind for a little over 2 years, probably 2.5 years. And we meet on Wednesday afternoons, Wednesday evenings. And, you know, we're talking leadership. We're talking professional development. We're sharing our experiences as school leaders. And it's been invaluable to just have a resource, have folks that are going through a lot of the similar types of experiences as we are. And, you know, it's just been one of the best investments that I've made in myself. And, you know, I feel like it's much more of a family than it is, you know, professional development or coaching and things like that. And, you know, I've been able to be on his podcast, you know, just through that network. I mean, he's been one of those people that is like, you know, been a sponsor for me and opened up doors for me to share my story. And so, you know, I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, man, listen, and it popped up in the chat, man. If you are in education, you got to get you a Twitter account. And I'm not saying just to get on there. If you're not a really tweeter, if you say, well, I ain't really a tweeter, just get on there for the free professional development. And we, you know, we'll give you a list of people that we recommend you following. And we said it. You hear us talking about it a lot, man. And we not getting money for this. When we shout out the A Black Hands, man, I need you to understand how authentic it is, because there would be no AOS podcast without the A Black Hands. I need y'all to understand that this started and birthed from the idea of just having us on to talk to Black school leaders from different areas across the country, man. And then the energy we had, he was like, man, y'all should do your own thing. And then we just connected. So that's why we say that. And it was through the A Black Hands, man, where I was able to really feel like I got to know leaders that I had been seeing, man. Like, so I named two for sure that I feel like the A Black Hands have just like introduced me to. The first one has got to be the GOAT and Howard Fuller, right? I've known about Howard Fuller for years, but I just known him by name, man. But it wasn't until I tapped in to the A Black Hands and I, you know, doing the writings with Chris and was able to work with that I was able to meet this man in person and sit in a room. And I don't know if Unc remember this, man, but the first time I met Unc was Chris had brought some bloggers, man, to I think it was Philly. And I met Unc for the first time, man. I don't know if you remember that, but I met him. I remember, man, just him talking. I'm like, man, this dude is sharp. And they said he was the superintendent out in New York. And I'm like, man, I need to know this dude. And I started following the hands. And I met Charles there. And I knew Sharif because I went to the conference that first year when he had the Black Male leader of the Black Male conference in Philly. And so I got to see all these folks, man. Brittany Packnetti, who's now, I think Cunningham is her name. People like Steve Perry. People like Kaya Henderson, right? It was through their podcast that I've seen all these people and got to hear them. And so, man, I'm just constantly tapping into them, man, following them on Twitter when they're on podcasts, when they're talking about things, man, just tapping into them because they've been doing this work for a long time. They've been doing this work at the highest level, man. It's just like in sports, man. Like, folks watch MJ and they watch Kobe and they watch Wilt and they watch all these greats, man. And when they talk to these greats, because they've been there and they've done it at the highest level. That's all that we're trying to do, man. We're trying to tap into folks who've done this education thing, done this advocacy for Black kids at the highest level the right way. And I'm just trying to tap into them any chance that I get. And so they've been able to open those doors for me, man. I'm just appreciative of that. So I'm always just tapping in. So when they bring an education leader on there I ain't heard of, I'm straight on the Google and I'm following them on Twitter. And just to get to know them, man. So that's who I'm tapping into and what I'm tapping into to make sure I think
you brought up a good point, because I think sometimes when we think of mentors, we think of like somebody that's right there with me that I can physically touch or know personally. Like, I mean, and I've said this before that I feel like I do want to say something about Chris though in a minute, but Dr. Cole has like mentored me from afar. Dr. Cole was he's the actual only 8 Black Hands that I actually met in person. I met him at the ESSA conference back in February, and that's kind of how I got tapped into the 8 Black Hands. But just talking to him for those few moments and then hearing him give his keynote address was amazing. Like, I mean, it was kind of like you can be authentically you as a doctor and still get the work done. Like, it was kind of like, something I had not seen before that really allowed me to kind of take my advocacy for my students to a whole nother level. Like, like truly understanding that there. But I think that you don't have to have a mentor that's sitting right there in your same space, physical space, but it could be somebody that's mentoring you from afar that makes a difference for you as well. So shout out to Dr. Cole, Big Brother Charles, for the mentor he's done for me. The one thing I wanted to say about Cousin Chris, did y'all peep Cousin Chris Compton look on the show this past Sunday?
I did, dog. I did. I did the hat cock to the side, man. I didn't know it said vote, man, until they said it.
The vote hat.
The vote hat.
I thought it was a Raiders hat for a minute.
I did too, man. Hey, man, listen. Again, man, if y'all ain't tuned in, I know most people that follow us have, but we got a lot of folks that listen to our show later on, man, and they hear the audio, man. But if you ain't tapped in Sunday nights, 9:30 Eastern, man, to the hands, man, dudes be wilding, man, but they be dropping gems, and you got to listen, right? Because if you don't listen, man, you just get caught up in the fire approach, man. You missing some of those hidden gems they drop, man. Like last Sunday, man, some gems was dropped, man. They was saying some stuff, man, that had you thinking, had some heat going. So definitely, man. So this next one, man, and I'll kick this one off. It's kind of our last topic, man, but it's lifting as we climb, man, and that coaching tree. So listen, I don't know about y'all, man. I'm trying to be out here like Belichick, man. I'm trying to get my Lane Kiffin's, dog. You hear me? My who else he had? Charlie Strong. Now that's Belichick. So Belichick and Saban. I'm trying to get a coaching tree, man, where I can build up the next generation, man, and they go off in these other schools and they doing the same work, but it all ties right to Summit, right? That's where it tied to. It's like the West Coast offense, right? Everybody running it, and it all circles back to Bill Walsh, man. And they talk about this. So that's what I'm trying to build, man, because I believe that we got to have folks that's going to carry the torch. And I talked about it before, especially us as Black men. We got to keep that door open. We got to keep that seat warm for the next Black man that comes through the door, man. And I share this to you, man. When I was young and as a leader, man, I made a mistake, a personal mistake, man, that infiltrated like the professional piece. And the piece that helped me get back focused was that I could shut the door for the next young Black male that has all the credentials and all the skill set to be a school leader, but somebody ain't gonna give him a chance because they was like, you know what? Nah, we gave David McGuire a chance and look what he did. And so we have that obligation, man. And so I'm real big on that. And I'm real big on bringing those up with me, lifting as I climb, making sure I send the elevator back down because somebody sent it down for me. And I can't just stay up at the top and not send it back. And so I got my 3 teacher leaders. They're called the Summit Ambassador Fellows. One's a SPED teacher. Is a Black male, a Black female math teacher, and a Black female who's a 2nd and 3rd grade ELA teacher, man. And they go through these modules once a month over certain leadership traits. And now they're doing some pieces in a building where they're taking on certain roles and leading initiatives. And so I'm trying to get to that piece where I'm building them. So when I take my next step, that it's an easy transition to who takes that leadership, man. So talk about what y'all want to do with the with y'all coaching tree.
Well, you know what? I'll start, and I think I want to take it back even further than the building leadership. I'm looking at these kids, man. We talk a lot about developing the next generation. Like we don't have a pipeline of Black male educators. Doc, you talked about not really having any that supported you going through your experience. I had one Black male teacher from kindergarten all the way through college. Mr. Gusa, 6th grade, teaching me Swahili. And the crazy thing about Mr. Gusa is he taught at Ohio State, and my dad actually had him in college. So, just that small network. But anyway, yeah, I think about the kids, man. I think about wanting to grow this profession, wanting to grow opportunities for Black males. It starts at the youngest ages. I coach my kids in our community leagues and the flag football and the basketball and things like that. And, they know me because, they know I'm the principal and that type of thing. But like that has an impact. And when they see us in that positive light, trying to coach and trying to make them better, I also think about, the experiences, this, you don't really have a whole lot of Black teachers. I mean, I don't in my district, we don't have a lot of Black teachers. In my school, we only have one. And so they need to see us. They need to see us. We need to inspire them, and we need to encourage them. When I was at the high school level, I was always talking to kids. I was like, you know what? You ever think about teaching? Whether I saw it in them or not, but we all got that potential. We're all leaders in whatever aspect. And we set the trends, as a community, as an African-American community, we set cultural trends. And if we can make being educated, being an educator, a trend, that's what I want to see. I think that's part of my legacy. I might not see it, hopefully 20 years down the line, I'll see it, and that'll come to fruition. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm always thinking like, I got to get that young Black man, that young Black woman interested in education somehow. But I can also talk to the teachers as well, because I definitely want to have that legacy of folks. I had a conversation with my assistant principal, not too long ago. Like, hey, you know what? That's my job, is to get you that next job. My job is to be able to replace me. Like I should be out of a job because you're ready to do it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That legacy piece, man. I tell my teachers all the time, man, I'm gonna get you paid. I'm gonna get you paid if you want it. So Doc, man, talk about, man, your leadership tree, man, and what you're trying to build. Because I've seen it, and we followed on Facebook, man. So talk about that.
So basically, I want to kind of hit on what Ball talked about first, is that next generation piece before I come to my current administration tree where I'm at now. And there's three men I want to talk about. The first two, Chris Dixon and Braxton Crowder, who in my 4th year teaching was in my 8th grade math class. And these were two young men who gave me hell day in and day out. They were both in the band. They both drummed. They thought my tables in my classroom was their newest drum set. And, had constant running in, nothing real big, but kind of just that chip on their shoulder. Never had a Black man try to, put them in line. So they kind of was bucking against the system. And the school year ended. And I thought I had no, kind of impact on these young men. They were 8th graders. They went on, they were 7th graders. They went on to 8th grade and everything like that. And it wasn't until approximately about, maybe 7 years later, I'm actually in Kansas City now, and I get a Facebook message from Braxton. And Braxton was like, Dr. Smith, he was like, I was Mr. Smith. He was like, Mr. Smith, I was hanging out with some of my friends the other day, and we were talking about the best teacher we ever had. And I had to get a hold of you and let you know that I'm in college now. And because you was the first Black man I seen with a degree, and I knew because you could do what I could do and stuff like that. Also, his best friend, Chris was his best friend. I ran into Chris last summer in Vegas at our conclave, who's now a Sigma as well. And he came up to me, was like, I followed you on Facebook. I seen you was a Sigma. So when I went to college, I make sure I wanted to be a Sigma, what I'm saying? So the impact you had on, these young men, even when I thought I didn't have any impact at all, was tremendous. And then another young man, I'll talk about Javen Betts, who is currently a sophomore at Kansas City, KU. He went to high school with my daughter. He found out I was in education. He found out I was working on my doctorate, and came to me and was like, Mr. Smith or Dr. Smith, can you mentor me? Like, can you help? Like, I want to go into education. I want to be a superintendent one day. So I've been working with him. Last year, he came up to my school a few times and shadowed me. You know, he's helped me do some. He's helped me do some work around retention with Black males in college right now. So really, I mean, just so like I said, helping that next generation get into education and be the next, you know, leaders in the school. As far as my current coach, my leadership tree, and like I said, and when you're doing the work, you don't even really think about it till you think back on it. I want to talk about 3 people that was in my building last year with me as a first-year principal. The first one was Mr. Moore, who was my assistant principal, who we worked together, and I kind of coached, mentored him up in instruction, because when I came in, he talked about how he was a building manager. He knew how to do discipline, but he didn't understand instruction. So just like I got myself a better lesson coach, I got him a better lesson coach. I got him into the leadership academy. You know, I started showing him all these different PDs, like sending them to conference and things like that. He got promoted to the high school this past summer. You know, my instructional coach, Mrs. Day, was my instructional coach last year. We did a lot of work around just changing the instructional focus. We focused around making sure people understood what the purpose of a lesson plan was, putting POCs in place and things like that. And now she's a principal at one of the elementaries in the district. And then the last person I want to talk about who's in the comment, Ms. Dakis, who was my 1A, who I was so hurt to leave, was one of my math teachers who basically was doing her thing. And like I said, I seen something in her and I pulled her onto the BL team. She was the building representative for our appropriate team. She's now an instructional coach with the district. So like when you talk about that Andy Reid, Bill Belichick type of tree that you want to build, like that's what I'm trying to build. Like I want to be able to send out people to run things in different buildings, take education structure to the level. You talked about the West Coast offense. This will be the last piece. My West Coast offense. So if you're trying to grow as a leader, this is my West Coast offense. What we focus on first is you're an instructional leader first. As the principal and administrator in the building, you first are an instructional leader. I don't care. We can figure out how to do discipline. We can figure out how to do bus schedules and all that. But if you don't know instruction, you can't work under me. Like you have to know instruction first and foremost, no questions asked. Then the next thing, I'm all about the Marzano teaching map. If you don't know about the Marzano teaching map, I can send you some resources. To me, it's basically a one snapshot of what good teaching looks like. And we're actually in the process of doing that in my building now. Student and parent voices is a priority for me. Making sure student and parent voices are a part of what I'm trying to do. And then the last thing is teacher appreciation. And Dave already know how I do teacher appreciation because his teachers be like, man, look, you need to talk to your boy because we just did Final Friday a couple weeks ago. We had Pab's food truck out here for all the teachers. We was doing Philly cheesesteaks and funnel cakes. So I'm all about doing teacher appreciation because my teachers work hard and I want to make sure that their work is appreciated. So that's my West Coast offense I'm trying to implement as a leader.
Man, there it is. So look, fellas, we have final thoughts, man. So and we've talked about a lot between coaching and mentors. So let's wrap our final thoughts, bro, about how we're going to put a bow on that. So, Ballman, I'm going to let you close it because this was your thing. So I kick it off. I go to Doc, man, and I'll let you close it, Ball. So my final thoughts is this, and y'all touched about it, that this next generation. So this is my plea and my call to schools. If you do a career fair and you don't have a booth about teaching, you should be slapped. Because how you going to be a school and you ain't got a booth about education? You got a building full of teachers and you ain't got nobody that's going to talk about education. That's the problem. So you can't encourage kids to get an education when you don't even talk about it in your career fair. 2, you got teachers that complain about their job all the time. They know that's a no-no here. That's a no-no up in the summit. You got to go if you don't love it. So if you have a career fair, pull a teacher from your building to talk to the kids about education. And the last thing, if you see that in somebody, that they have that potential, and Ball, you talked about that, man, foster that love for that kid to be the teacher because we have to make sure that we build the next generation. I had a kid tell me, a 3rd grader, said, Mr. Guar, I want to be a teacher. I said, enough said. I said, we got to get her the support we need. And every time that she sees a teacher, she's a positive environment. She needs to hear the good in teaching. So that's my final thoughts, man. We have to be our advocates for the profession because nobody's going to love our profession like we do. You don't see lawyers complaining about their job. It may be tough, but they're not complaining about it. They're just trying to get more kids to be lawyers. The same thing with doctors, and we need to do the same with education, specifically with teaching. So that's my final thoughts. Doc, what you got?
My final thought is I just want to go back to the piece we talked about with the coaches mentor piece. If you're in this profession and you're trying to progress, I don't care if you're a teacher, 1st year, 2nd year, 20th year, or if you're an assistant principal, instructional coach, assistant superintendent, and you're trying to move to that next area, you're going to need a coach and a mentor. You're going to need that person that's going to be results driven, that's going to give it to you straight no chaser, but then you also need that mentor to come in and undergird you and kind of help build you back up after that coach kind of rip you down. But then also, like I said, you're going to need that sponsorship, because there's going to be some rooms you're not going to be able to get into, that you're not going to be privy to those conversations, that you're going to need somebody in that room to talk you up, to speak you up. And that's very important. And sometimes those roles cross over. A person can be coach one day, mentor the next day, a sponsor the next day, but you definitely going to need that. You're not going to make it in this work alone. And the last thing I want to say is, for all my Black males out there in education, like, please reach back and help another Black man get up. Like I said, I came up the hard way. I say that there's very few Black men in my tree that helped me get to where I am. It was a lot of Black women that lifted me up and helped me get where I was. With that, you know, one of the things I'm doing to try to change that narrative is, if you don't know, I'm one of the co-founders of Black Male Educators in Greater Kansas City, where we're trying to uplift and move forward the Black male educators in the city. So that's my final thought.
Doc, I appreciate that. I'm just going to finish up saying, you know, this topic came up for me just because, again, I've talked about this, not having any other Black administrators at the principal level, one other in the assistant principal level in my district. You can't wait. If you're a leader, you can't wait to get someone for your district to come up with a plan to support you. You have to go out there. You have to be proactive. You have to make it happen. Find someone. Doesn't matter if they're Black, white, green, yellow, whatever. There are people that see leadership in you. Find those folks, latch on to them, just, you know, pick their brain and get that support that you need. And just like Doc said, you know, I was also thinking, like, we can't wait to recruit those other Black male educators. So go to those local colleges. Go to those kids that are in your schools right now. Encourage them. If they don't have any other positive experience, they need to have that positive experience with you. So I just want to give a shout out to y'all, because I appreciate y'all each and every week that we come together.
Man, listen, hey, folks, this has been the AOS Podcast, episode 7. You can catch us October 21st for episode 8, again on a Wednesday. That's going to be our new start, our new day, same time that we've been going on Fridays. We appreciate you listening. Be on the lookout. We about to drop the link, because I know we have some folks asking, so we still owe you the link from our conversation last week. So you can get that link, and also the link for this week. Share this video, tag somebody who was your mentor or your coach, or somebody that you're mentoring and coaching, and have them listen. But again, this has been the AOS Podcast, episode 7. See y'all in 2 weeks, man. Much love.
Go, Mob.